When human beings think about the rainy season, we often think of things that are small and intimate. A rooftop echoing with the sound of falling rain in the night, a road shimmering with reflected lights beneath a thin layer of water, the scent of damp earth rising after the first rain of the season, or the strange sense of peace that comes from lying quietly beneath a blanket while listening to rain outside the window. But if we look a little deeper, the rainy season is actually one of the greatest movements of Earth itself. It is not merely weather. It is the moment an entire planet begins to change the rhythm of its breathing. There are lands that remain almost silent for many months. The ground cracks beneath the sunlight. Rivers shrink into narrow streams of water. Grass fades into pale yellow. The air becomes so dry that everything seems to fall asleep inside a long season of waiting. And then one day, the rain arrives. At first, it is only a few small drops touching the hot dust of the earth. But very quickly, the whole world begins to move again. Dry riverbeds slowly fill. The soil softens. Seeds buried deep underground begin to awaken. Insects return to the night. Frogs begin calling from newly formed pools of water. Flocks of birds change the direction of their migration. And somewhere across the vast grasslands, herds of animals begin to walk toward the scent of rain, touching the horizon. The rainy season does not merely make the earth wetter, it awakens life itself. Perhaps that is why human beings have always carried such a deep emotional connection with rain. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, water has long been an ancient symbol within the collective unconscious of humanity. In countless dreams, myths, and ancient religions, water represents rebirth, the deep unconscious mind, buried emotions, and the things waiting to be awakened. And the rainy season may be the largest expression of that symbol in the living world, because whenever the rain returns, the world resembles the human soul after a long season of emotional dryness. Things that once remained silent begin to speak again. Things believed to be dead begin to return to life. What is strange is that much of life on Earth does not truly disappear during the dry season. It simply waits. Seeds remain motionless beneath the hot soil for many months. Some species of frogs bury themselves in mud and almost completely suspend their biological activity. Insects leave their eggs in dormant states. Even bacteria in the soil reduce their activity until they become nearly invisible. Everything seems to be listening for a signal from the sky, and that signal is rain. With only the first few rains, millions of biological mechanisms are activated all at once, as though the entire planet were awakening from a long sleep. There are deserts so barren that they show almost no signs of life for years. But after a single rare rainfall, thousands of flowers suddenly bloom within only a few days. Seen from above, the land appears as though it has remembered its true colors again. And perhaps human beings are very similar. Sometimes we believe we have become emotionally numb, too exhausted, as though we have lost something deep inside ourselves. But perhaps, like seeds beneath dry soil, some part of us is still waiting for the right rain to awaken once more. And that is one of the things that makes the rainy season feel so mysterious. It makes human beings feel hope without needing an explanation. Rain does not ask whether the earth deserves to be revived. It simply arrives and brings life back again. Yet behind the gentleness of rain falling through the night, an immense system is constantly moving across the entire planet. A rainfall does not truly begin in the sky. It begins in the ocean, from billions of tons of water evaporating beneath sunlight every day, from ocean currents silently carrying heat around the earth, from winds transporting moisture across thousands of kilometers of open space, from atmospheric pressure endlessly shifting across seas and continents, and from the slow rotation of this planet within the darkness of the cosmos. When we listen to rain falling upon a rooftop, it is difficult to imagine that such a small sound is the result of enormous forces working together on a planetary scale. The rainy season is a living system. The ocean exhales water vapor, The wind carries it across the sky. Mountains push air masses upward. Temperature causes vapor to condense into clouds. And finally, the sky returns water to the earth, an ancient cycle that existed for billions of years before human beings ever appeared. Perhaps that is why rain always carries a deeply primordial feeling that is difficult to describe. The sound of rain helps many people sleep more easily, reflect more deeply, remember old memories more vividly, because somewhere deep inside the subconscious, human beings still recognize that rain means safety. For most of evolutionary history, rain meant plants would grow again, animals would return, rivers would carry water, harvests would survive, and life would continue. Perhaps that is why rainy nights often feel strangely protective, as though the body knows that the world outside is being nourished once again. But the rainy season does not only change life, it changes the light of the world itself. Before the rains arrive, the sky in many places becomes harsh and painfully bright. The air trembles with heat. Everything seems frozen beneath the endless warmth. Then clouds begin to appear. The light softens. The sky darkens earlier. The wind changes direction. The scent of the earth begins to shift. It is one of nature's most beautiful moments, when the whole world seems to know the rain is coming, even before the first drop falls. Human beings feel this as well. We often grow quieter before rain arrives, as though the mind itself is waiting. According to Jungian depth psychology, changes within nature often reflect movements within the human soul, and the rainy season is a very special example of this. After long periods of pressure, loneliness, or exhaustion, human beings also pass through spiritual dry seasons. Emotions become depleted. Everything loses its color. We continue living, yet inside we feel like land, waiting for water. And then sometimes, a single small moment becomes the first rainfall, a conversation, an old piece of music, a hug, a quiet night, or simply the sound of rain beyond the window, and the sleeping parts of the soul begin to awaken once more. Perhaps that is why so many people feel more able to cry during rainy days. Rain softens the world, and sometimes it softens the hardened places inside human beings as well. What is fascinating is that the rainy season does not exist in the same way everywhere on Earth. In some places, it arrives at nearly the exact same time every year. Elsewhere, it is unpredictable and uncertain. Some regions experience months of rainfall. Others have only a few short weeks for entire ecosystems to complete their cycles of survival. But no matter where it falls, rain always carries the same ancient message. Life is returning. There are forests that only truly become themselves when the rains arrive. The sounds of insects grow thicker. Leaves appear brighter. The air becomes heavy with moisture and the scent of plants. Even the sounds of the world begin to change. Water dripping from leaves. Distant thunder rolling behind dense clouds. Rainwater flowing through gutters, rooftops, and narrow roads. Nights during the rainy season are rarely completely silent, but it is not the kind of noise that creates tension. It feels more like a natural rhythm beneath the world, a kind of sound the human brain has known long before cities, telephones, or machines ever existed. Perhaps that is why rain so often calms the mind. It softens the sharp sounds of the modern world. It creates the feeling that everything outside is slowing down, that nobody needs to hurry anymore. And in that moment, human beings allow themselves to rest. Seen from space, the rainy season resembles the heartbeat of Earth. Massive bands of clouds drift across the oceans. Land changes color according to the water it receives. Rivers and lakes swell and retreat in ancient cycles. Everything is connected. Oceans, winds, trees, animals, human beings, and even time itself. Rain connects them all. Perhaps the most beautiful thing about the rainy season is that it reminds human beings that life has never truly been separate from nature. Even while living inside cities of concrete and artificial light, our minds still respond to rain exactly as our ancestors did thousands of years ago. We still feel peace when listening to water falling in the night. We still feel lighter when cool air arrives after many days of heat. We still sense something deep within ourselves whenever the rainy season returns, as though an ancient part of the soul is whispering, "Earth is still alive, and so are we." There is something very strange about the rainy season. For most of the time, its true power is almost invisible. When we watch rain falling outside a window at night, everything appears so gentle. Only small drops of water touching rooftops, earth, and tree branches trembling softly in the wind. But in reality, the rainy season is one of the most powerful forces that has ever shaped life on Earth. Not volcanoes, not earthquakes, but water itself. For millions of years, water falling from the sky has determined which places would become forests, which would turn into deserts, which would overflow with life, and which would sink into long silence. What is astonishing is that, within only a few rainy days, an entire world can completely transform. There are lands that show almost no sign of life for many months. The ground cracks beneath burning sunlight. Grass disappears. Lakes and ponds shrink into hardened mud. The air becomes so dry that even sound itself seems thinner. If someone walked through such places during the dry season, it would be easy to believe that nature had abandoned them long ago. But in truth, it never left. It was only sleeping. And perhaps that is one of nature's most beautiful secrets. Much of life on Earth does not die during the dry season. It simply waits, waiting for a signal. The first rainfall, a little moisture in the air, a small change in the temperature of the ground, and then suddenly, the whole world awakens together. In some way, the rainy season feels like an invisible hand touching this planet and saying, "It is time to begin again." There are seeds that remain beneath the earth for years without sprouting, not because they are dead, but because they know how to wait for the right moment. Inside those tiny shells, life quietly continues to exist until water finally touches them. Then countless biological reactions begin immediately. The seed absorbs water, its shell softens, enzymes awaken once again, and from the darkness beneath the soil, a small sprout begins reaching toward the light. It sounds almost like a miracle, but it is science, and perhaps also a profound metaphor for the human soul. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, many parts of the human mind exist in similar states of dormancy. There are emotions buried for too long, memories we believed we had forgotten, creative, gentle, or hopeful parts within us that have not disappeared, but are only waiting for something to awaken them again. And sometimes, all it takes is a small rainfall within the inner world, understanding, a peaceful moment, the feeling of being loved, or a quiet night, long enough to hear oneself clearly, and everything inside begins to come alive again. Perhaps that is why nature, after rainfall, moves human beings so deeply, because somewhere inside the unconscious, we recognize ourselves within it. What is even more astonishing is that the rainy season does not awaken only plants. It awakens entire ecosystems. In many places around the world, the first rains of the season act like a starting signal for millions of living creatures at once. Frogs crawl upward from the mud, where they hid throughout the dry season. Insects fill the night air. Winged ants rise in enormous swarms. Temporary ponds form within only hours, and almost immediately, life arrives. There are animals that seem to disappear for many months. Then, after only a few rains, they return everywhere, as though they had never left. The night becomes filled with sound again. Insects vibrating among fresh grasses, water dripping from leaves, frogs calling to one another from newly formed pools. After many months of silence, nature begins speaking once more. Seen from above, It resembles a form of collective rebirth. Brown lands slowly turn green. Rivers begin expanding again. Herds of animals shift their migrations according to the scent of rain carried by the wind. And all of this happens simply because water has returned. Human beings often believe that power must arrive with loud noise. But the rainy season reveals another kind of power, quieter, more patient, yet capable of transforming the entire living world. A powerful rainy season can bring more water than many enormous rivers combined. Every dark cloud in the sky carries millions of tons of water, and when that water reaches the earth, it does not merely make plants greener, it changes temperature, light, currents, animal behavior, soil structure, and the biological rhythms of nearly every living thing. One could say that the rainy season is like the heartbeat of the planet. When that rhythm returns, everything begins moving again. What is remarkable is that many living creatures do not respond to time the way human beings do. They respond to rain. Some insects hatch only after the soil reaches a certain level of moisture. Some fish begin reproducing when river levels rise. Some birds build nests precisely when insect populations explode after the rains, as though all of nature were using water as an invisible clock. Rain does not only bring life, it synchronizes life. According to Jung, the collective unconscious contains primordial symbols that human beings have carried for tens of thousands of years. And perhaps rain is one of the oldest symbols of all, because throughout most of human history, rain meant harvests, food, survival, and hope. A rainfall arriving at the right moment could save an entire community from starvation. A failed rainy season could collapse civilizations. So it is not surprising that the human mind responds so deeply to the sound of rain. It is not merely sound, it is biological memory. Perhaps somewhere deep within the nervous system, our brains still remember that. Rain means life continues, and perhaps that is why so many people feel relaxed when it rains. The air softens, the light becomes gentler. The steady sound of water creates a strange sense of safety. The outside world seems to slow down, and in that moment, human beings feel permitted to rest. But perhaps the most beautiful thing about the rainy season lies in nature's patience. Nothing returns to life instantly. Everything happens slowly. Tiny shoots begin appearing. Moss softens upon stone. The earth absorbs water little by little. Insects return first, then birds, then predators. Life comes back layer by layer, like music gradually growing louder. And this is very similar to the healing journey of human beings. After periods of exhaustion or sorrow, the soul cannot heal within a single night. It begins with very small signs. A day that feels a little lighter, a natural smile returning once again, a deep sleep after many sleepless nights, a feeling of wanting to continue forward. Like nature after the first rainfall, the soul also needs time to become green again. And perhaps that is why videos like this bring so many people peace before sleep. Because when listening to rain, to the rebirth of the world, human beings unconsciously feel that they too may begin again. No dry season lasts forever. No land completely loses its ability to bloom again. It only needs the return of water, only a signal gentle enough to awaken what has been sleeping. If we listen carefully to the rain at night, sometimes it feels as though Earth itself is telling human beings a very ancient story, that life does not disappear as easily as we think. It simply knows how to wait, waiting for the right moment, waiting for the right rain, waiting for the right instant to awaken once again. And perhaps, within every human soul, there are seeds like these as well. The forgotten parts, old hopes, feelings that never had the chance to bloom. They are not dead. They are only waiting for rain. When we listen to rain falling at night, everything feels strangely close. The sound of water touching rooftops, the scent of damp earth drifting through the window frame, the air becoming softer, and the outside world seeming to shrink into a quiet space gentle enough for human beings to rest inside. But what is strange is this. A rainfall has never truly begun where it falls. A storm may be born from an ocean thousands of kilometers away, from warm currents moving slowly across the vast Pacific Ocean, from heat the sun gave to the sea weeks earlier, from invisible winds traveling around the planet unseen by human eyes. In other words, every rainfall is the result of the entire Earth moving together. And perhaps that is one of the most beautiful things about nature. Everything is connected. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, human beings often tend to think of themselves as separate individuals. But the deeper we look into the world, the more we realize that nothing truly exists alone. The human mind connects to memory. Memory connects to emotion. Emotion connects to experiences older than ourselves. And nature is the same way. A small nighttime rain outside the window may actually begin with a shift in ocean temperature on the opposite side of the planet. The oceans are the birthplace of most rainfalls on Earth. Every day, beneath sunlight, billions of tons of water quietly evaporate from the sea, without sound, without notice. And yet this process has never stopped for billions of years. The ocean is like the giant heart of the planet, endlessly sending vapor into the sky. Then the winds carry it away. Masses of moist air begin moving across oceans, mountains, forests, and continents. They gather water like invisible seas drifting through the atmosphere. What is strange is that most human beings never truly realize how much water exists in the sky itself. The air we are breathing at this very moment may contain enormous amounts of moisture, especially in warm weather. Warm air is like an invisible vessel capable of holding vast quantities of water. It keeps vapor suspended all around us, beyond the reach of our eyes. That is why the atmosphere often feels entirely different before rain arrives. Heavier, more humid, thicker somehow. There are summer afternoons when people almost feel as though they are walking inside water vapor itself. Skin grows slightly damp, the wind weakens, the sky darkens, and everything seems to be waiting for something to happen. That is the moment nature approaches its limit. The sky can no longer hold more water. And finally, rain begins to fall. Seen this way, rain is the moment of release. A surrender after a long process of gathering and holding. And strangely, the human mind is very similar. According to Jung, the unconscious is not a silent, dead place. It is where emotions, memories, and unresolved parts of the self quietly accumulate over time. Many people live too long in a state of holding stress, holding sorrow, holding loneliness, holding thoughts that were never spoken aloud, until one day, the soul resembles the sky before rainfall, heavy, silent, unable to hold anymore. And then emotions begin overflowing like rainwater, perhaps as tears, perhaps as a long conversation in the middle of the night, or simply as the desire to sit quietly and listen to rain outside the window. Perhaps that is why human beings become more reflective during rainy days. Rain allows long-buried things to rise back to the surface. But to truly understand the rainy season, we must look beyond the clouds themselves. Somewhere across the Pacific Ocean, the temperature of the sea may shift by only a few small degrees. Yet that small change can alter weather across the entire world. Human beings call these phenomena El Niño and La Niña, names that sound gentle, yet describe enormous movements within Earth's climate system. When ocean temperatures change, winds change as well. Atmospheric currents shift, clouds change, rain changes. One region may suffer long droughts, while another becomes overwhelmed by floods. And this reminds human beings of a profound truth. Everything on this planet is connected in ways we can barely see. A patch of warm water in a distant ocean may determine the fate of harvests for millions of people elsewhere. The world is always more complex than it appears, and the human mind is as well. According to Jung, many of our present emotions do not truly begin in the present moment. A sadness felt today may be shaped by ancient memories. A fear may come from something that happened years ago. Just like rain, the real cause sometimes exists very far from where we stand. Perhaps maturity is not about controlling everything, but learning to understand the invisible currents beneath the surface of life. One of the most magnificent movements within the rainy season is the monsoon. Many people believe a monsoon is simply heavy rain, but in truth, it is the shifting breath of entire continents and oceans. Land heats faster than the sea. During the day, the earth absorbs heat much more intensely. The air above the land becomes hot and rises upward. Then moist air from the ocean is drawn inland to replace it. Massive rivers of vapor begin moving. Clouds form, storms appear, and the rainy season begins. Seen from satellites, monsoons resemble invisible rivers flowing through the sky. They carry water from the oceans into the continents to nourish life. There is something deeply beautiful in this movement. The ocean gives water to the land. The land nourishes forests. Forests hold water and create moisture, and vapor returns once again to the sky. A cycle that has never ceased. According to Jung, human beings often suffer because they believe themselves separate from nature. But the deeper we look into the world, the more we realize that we too are part of these cycles. The human mind also has dry seasons and rainy seasons. There are periods when emotions inside us become depleted. Everything grows hard and lifeless. Then something appears. A meeting, a memory, a moment of being truly heard, or simply a quiet rainy night, and emotions begin returning like water returning to the earth. Perhaps healing works the same way nature does, not through force, but through the arrival of the right flow at the right time. Mountains also help create rain. When moist air meets mountains, it is pushed upward. The higher it rises, the colder it becomes. Water vapor condenses into clouds, and rain falls along mountain slopes. That is why many of the world's greatest forests exist near mountain ranges. Mountains force the sky to release its water, and somehow, that feels almost psychological. Sometimes the obstacles in life force long-suppressed emotions to finally overflow. Human beings naturally wish to avoid pain, but sometimes, difficult periods are exactly what cause the soul to begin moving again. Just as mountains press clouds into rain, life sometimes presses human beings to confront the deepest things hidden within themselves. And afterward, transformation begins. Coastal regions are often the first to receive rainfall. Moist air from the ocean touches land there before anywhere else. People who live near the sea often sense the rainy season arriving very early. Winds changing direction, clouds hanging lower, the air carrying a different scent, and even the sound of waves growing stronger. For thousands of years, human beings learned how to read these signs. Because the rainy season is not merely weather, it is time itself. The time for planting, the time for migration, the time for building, the time for preparing life to continue. In some equatorial regions, the rainy season even arrives twice each year, not because nature repeats itself randomly, but because tropical rain belts move north and south with the position of the sun. The entire planet seems to sway with light itself. And this reminds human beings that everything alive on Earth is moving together. Oceans, clouds, winds, forests, animals, and human beings as well. Perhaps we do not always remember this inside the modern world of concrete and glowing screens, but whenever rain falls, an ancient part of the soul remembers that our ancestors once survived because of these rains, remembers that life has always begun with water, remembers that nature is not truly chaotic, but moving according to rhythms far deeper than human eyes can see. And perhaps that is what makes nighttime rain feel so peaceful, because when listening to rainfall, human beings unconsciously feel that the world is still functioning exactly as it has for billions of years. The oceans are still breathing. The sky is still carrying water across the planet. The winds are still moving over dark seas. And Earth is still quietly nourishing life beneath those gentle rain clouds. There are moments on Earth when the entire world seems to change within a single rainfall, not in a violent way like earthquakes or volcanoes, but through a transformation that is soft, slow, and almost soulful. A dry land begins changing color. The air grows gentler. The sky darkens beneath thick layers of clouds. Rivers fill again, and somewhere within the scent of damp earth awakening after the first rainfall, nature begins remembering itself. The rainy season does not merely bring water to the planet, it changes the way the world exists. Perhaps the strangest thing about the rainy season is its power to transform almost everything. Forests, deserts, grasslands, rivers and lakes, light, temperature, sound, and even the colors of the world itself, as though Earth were changing into another skin. If we look at a landscape before and after the rainy season, sometimes they resemble two entirely different planets. During the dry season, many places carry a stillness so deep they seem asleep. Grass fades into pale yellow. The ground hardens beneath sunlight. The air trembles with heat. Rivers and lakes shrink into narrow streams. Everything feels tired. Then the rain arrives, and within only days, the world begins returning to life with astonishing speed. Grasslands explode into green. Trees suddenly grow fresh leaves. Flowers appear across lands that once seemed incapable of supporting life. Lakes reflect skies that are darker and deeper. The air fills with the scent of leaves, wet earth, and water. This is not merely a change in scenery. It feels as though the true nature of the land is finally revealing itself. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, every human being contains many layers within the soul. There is the layer we show to the world, the layer hidden beneath fear, pressure, or memory, and a deeper essence that often appears only under special conditions. Nature is the same way. The dry season is sometimes only the surface, and the rainy season is when the land reveals its true soul. There are deserts that appear completely empty for most of the year. The ground cracks beneath sunlight. Hot winds carry dust through the air. There are no bird songs, no green life. At first glance, one could easily believe that life barely exists there at all. But the miracle is this: when a great rainfall arrives at the right moment, the entire landscape changes within only days. Thousands of flowers bloom from dry soil. Seeds dormant for months awaken together. Purple, yellow, red, and green spread across land that once appeared empty. The desert seems to remember how alive it once was. And perhaps this moves human beings so deeply because we are the same way. There are periods in life when the soul becomes dry, when emotions lose their color. We continue living, yet inside we resemble land, longing for water. Then something appears: understanding, the feeling of being heard, a peaceful moment, or simply a quiet, rainy night. And the sleeping parts within begin to awaken again. According to Jung, the deepest parts of the soul never truly disappear. They are only covered by time and ordinary life. Like seeds beneath the desert, they wait for the right conditions to bloom. Perhaps that is why human beings always feel that the rainy season carries hope. It reminds us that life can return even to the places that seem most barren. Not only deserts, grasslands also transform completely when rain arrives. During the dry season, vast plains may become yellow and silent. Wind moves through dry grasses with thin and hollow sounds, but after the rains, everything explodes into life. Grass grows so quickly that the earth changes color within days. Herds of animals return. The air fills with insects and birdsong. Life begins moving with the water. Seen from above, the rainy season resembles a green wave spreading across the planet. And strangely, even the light of the world changes when rain arrives. Before the rainy season, sunlight often appears white and sharp. The sky feels higher somehow. Dry air causes colors to fade. Then clouds begin to appear. The light softens. The sky turns into a deep blue-gray. Everything reflects less glare, yet carries greater depth. There are rainy afternoons when the entire world seems covered in gentle light. According to Jungian psychology, light and darkness are powerful symbols within the human unconscious. Intense light often symbolizes consciousness, logic, and the external world, while the soft darkness of rain clouds turns human beings inward toward themselves. Perhaps that is why rainy days make people more reflective. When the outer world softens, the inner world becomes clearer. The rainy season does not only change what we see, it changes what we feel. One of the most remarkable things after rainfall is the scent of the earth itself. Almost everyone has experienced that moment, when the first rain touches dry ground, and suddenly the air fills with a scent impossible to forget. It feels earthy, deep, and strangely peaceful. Science calls this phenomenon petrichor. The smell of earth after rain is created by plant oils accumulated during the dry season and compounds produced by soil bacteria. When rain touches the ground, these molecules are released into the air. What is fascinating is that human beings are especially sensitive to this scent. Our brains can detect petrichor at extremely low concentrations. Perhaps because throughout evolutionary history, the scent of earth after rain meant water, life, plants, and the possibility of survival. Once again, the human body seems to remember ancient things. Perhaps we live inside modern cities, but deep within the unconscious, the mind still responds to rain exactly as our ancestors once did. According to Jung, many ancient symbols still exist within the collective unconscious. Water, forests, night, rain, the moon, and thunder. They touch human beings not only through reason, but through something much deeper. That is why nighttime rain sometimes makes us feel sadness without knowing why, or peace so profound that we wish to remain silent for a very long time. Rain slows the world down. The steady sound of water falling on rooftops, leaves, and windows creates a kind of natural rhythm beneath existence itself. It does not demand attention. It simply exists, like the breathing of the planet. And within that steady rhythm, the human nervous system slowly becomes calm again. But perhaps the most beautiful thing about the rainy season lies in its ability to reveal. Every landscape has a different face when rain arrives. Rainforests become deeper, darker, and filled with more sound. Deserts become soft and colorful. Grasslands seem alive with movement. Rivers and lakes widen as though remembering their true size. The rainy season is like light, shining upon the truest part of nature. And perhaps human beings are the same way. There are circumstances that make us withdraw like land during the dry season. We become harder, quieter, less emotional. But when the right rain enters our lives, love, understanding, rest, or simply the feeling of safety, the true nature of the soul begins to appear. Some people become gentler, some become more creative, some finally allow themselves to cry after years of holding everything inside. According to Jung, spiritual growth is not about becoming someone else. It is about returning closer to the person we truly are within ourselves. And the rainy season is the perfect image of that truth. It does not create the soul of the land. It simply reveals it. If we could look at Earth from space during the rainy season, we would see the entire planet changing its rhythm. Clouds drift in fast bands. Dry lands turn green. Rivers widen. Forests grow denser. The whole world seems to breathe more deeply. And perhaps that is what makes rainy nights feel so special. When lying in the darkness, listening to rain fall, human beings feel they are not entirely alone, because beyond the window, the entire planet is moving within the same rhythm. Trees are drawing water from the earth. Rivers are filling again. The scent of soil is rising into the air. Seeds are awakening in the darkness. And somewhere very deep within, Perhaps our souls are quietly changing with the rainy season as well. There is something very special about the rainy season. It does not only change landscapes, it changes the rhythm of life for almost every living creature on Earth. When the first rains begin touching dry ground, nature seems to receive a secret signal that only it can understand. Then each species begins to respond. Birds change the way they fly. Insects appear more densely in the night air. Frogs begin calling from newly formed ponds. Large herds alter their migration routes. Fish swim deep into forests newly flooded by rising waters. Everything begins moving at once, as though the entire planet were listening to the same invisible clock. And that clock is rain. Human beings often think nature functions randomly, but the more closely we observe, the more we realize that life on Earth operates with astonishing precision, especially during the rainy season. There are birds that begin building nests only when insect populations surge after the first seasonal rains. They need no calendars, no weather forecasts, no clocks. Their bodies simply sense the changing world. The humidity in the air, the temperature, the length of daylight, the scent of soil and leaves after rain. And then, ancient instincts begin guiding them. Nests appear among tree branches. Birdsong grows thicker in the morning air. And somewhere inside those small nests, a new generation is quietly being prepared for life. What is remarkable is that birds do not reproduce merely after the rainy season arrives. They synchronize themselves with it, because when their chicks are born, insects are already exploding in number. The greatest abundance of food appears precisely when tiny beaks need nourishment most. Nature resembles a vast symphony in which every creature plays its own part at exactly the right moment. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, human beings often feel lonely because they believe themselves separate from the natural world. But in truth, we once lived according to rhythms like these as well. Human ancestors once woke with sunlight, moved with the seasons, rested when rain arrived, and felt the changing earth through their own bodies. Perhaps that is why, even today, rainfall still calms the human mind instinctively. An ancient part of the nervous system still recognizes rain means life is returning. When rainy season nights descend, another world of sound begins to awaken. It is the world of frogs. There are places completely silent during the dry season. Ponds disappear. The earth cracks beneath endless heat. But after only a few rains, the first calls begin rising from the darkness. At first, only scattered sounds. Then very quickly, the entire night becomes a strange chorus of hundreds, thousands of frogs calling for mates. It is not merely sound, it is the signal that life itself is restarting. Frogs depend heavily on water for reproduction. The temporary pools formed after rain become safe places for laying eggs. And because the rainy season never lasts forever, everything must happen quickly. Nature suddenly accelerates. Eggs are laid in water. Tadpoles appear. Life develops with astonishing speed before the pools disappear again in the next dry season. This makes the rainy season feel almost sacred, a season of opportunity. Every creature seems to understand. This is the time to live most fully. There are elephant herds across the African savannas capable of sensing rainfall from immense distances. They begin moving even before rain reaches the place where they stand. Perhaps through the scent of water carried by wind. Perhaps through subtle vibrations in the atmosphere, or through ancient instincts modern human beings have slowly forgotten. Zebras, wildebeests, and countless other animals begin migrations stretching hundreds of kilometers toward lands newly touched by rain. Seen from above, it resembles blood flowing through the body of the planet. Life always moves toward water, and wherever rain arrives, sound, movement, and hope begin to return. There is something deeply moving in the way animals trust the rainy season. They do not know the future. They have no maps, no long-term plans, yet they still follow the subtle signals of nature. Perhaps human beings once lived this way too. According to Jung, intuition is a profound part of the human mind, but modern society slowly pulls us away from it. We live through schedules, screens, and endless pressure until we forget how to truly listen to life. Meanwhile, nature continues functioning through intuition every day. A bird knows when to build its nest. An elephant herd knows when to migrate. A seed knows when to sprout. No one commands them. They simply feel the rhythm of the world. And the rainy season is one of the strongest rhythms of all. Even the smallest creatures change when rain arrives. Insects explode in number almost immediately after the first rains. Temporary pools appear. Fresh leaves emerge. Humidity rises. Ideal breeding conditions form everywhere. Winged ants rise into humid skies in enormous swarms. Termites leave their nests after rain to begin building new colonies. Under lights during rainy nights, the air can sometimes feel so thick with insects that it almost vibrates. Modern human beings may find this irritating, but to nature, it is abundance. Insects form the foundation of countless ecosystems. Birds feed on them, frogs feed on them, fish feed on them, and plants are pollinated through them. When insects surge, the entire chain of life begins moving with them. Once again, the rainy season acts like a giant switch, turning on the whole ecosystem. There are tropical forests where fish swim deep among the trees during the rainy season. It sounds imaginary, yet it is real. When rivers rise, entire forests become flooded. Fish follow the water between tree trunks, searching for fallen fruit, insects, and shelter. The underwater world and the land world temporarily merge together. The boundaries between ecosystems disappear. This makes the rainy season feel like a time when the entire planet becomes more fluid, more flexible, more gentle. Land and water blend together. Rivers and forests connect. Animals and plants change their behavior simultaneously. Everything adapts itself to the movement of water. According to Jung, healthy life is not rigidity. It is the ability to change and adapt to the flow of existence. Nature understands this deeply. No species fights against the rainy season. They learn how to live with it. Perhaps human beings would suffer less if we understood that life itself always exists in cycles. Dry seasons and rainy seasons, silence and movement, loss and rebirth. No state lasts forever. The rainy season reminds us of this everywhere. Perhaps the most beautiful thing lies in the speed with which nature changes once rain arrives. After months of silence, everything suddenly accelerates. More sound, more life, more scent, more movement, as though the entire world has awakened from a long sleep. And within that movement, there is an ancient energy human beings still feel, even when we cannot name it. Perhaps that is why rainy nights change the human mind so deeply. We think more deeply, remember more vividly, dream more intensely, because somewhere in the unconscious, the brain still recognizes that rain is not merely water, it is the signal of life itself. If you listen carefully during a rainy night, you begin to realize that nature has never truly been silent. Outside, insects are vibrating their wings in the darkness. Frogs are calling beside newly formed pools. Birds are preparing for breeding season. Herds are walking toward the scent of rain in the wind, and trees are drawing water upward from the soil to grow new leaves. The entire planet is moving within the same rhythm, a rhythm older than humanity, older than civilization itself, and it continues returning every year, like a gentle reminder that life always knows when it is time to awaken. There is a beautiful truth about nature that human beings often forget within the pace of modern life. Most life on Earth does not disappear when the world becomes dry. It simply grows quiet, beneath cracked earth scorched by sunlight, beneath fields that seem dead, beneath the dust of deserts. Millions of forms of life are still quietly waiting, waiting for water, waiting for moisture, waiting for the right temperature, waiting for the moment the world becomes soft enough for life to begin again. And then, the rainy season arrives, not through sudden violence, but through the first small changes. The scent of earth begins to shift, the air grows gentler, the wind carries moisture, and clouds begin lingering longer in the sky. Then the first raindrop falls. To human eyes, it may seem like an ordinary rainstorm, but to soil and plants, it is the signal of rebirth. Perhaps the miracle of the rainy season lies in this. Nature knows how to wait. Millions of seeds can remain still beneath the earth for months, even years, without sprouting. They are not dead, they are sleeping. In the darkness underground, these tiny seeds almost completely suspend their biological activity. They conserve energy, seal themselves inside fragile shells, and patiently wait for the right conditions to arrive. There are seeds that awaken only after receiving the proper amount of water, the right temperature, the exact humidity, and sometimes even chemical signals from the first rainfall itself. Nature does not hurry. It understands that the right timing matters more than speed. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, the human soul contains seeds like these as well. There are abilities that never truly disappeared, only never found the moment to bloom. Gentle parts of ourselves buried beneath pressure and pain. Dreams sleeping quietly for years because life became too harsh. But just like nature after the dry season, what sleeps is not necessarily dead. Sometimes the human soul also needs a rainy season, a period of rest, the feeling of safety, genuine understanding, or simply a quiet enough night to hear oneself clearly. And then, the silent parts begin awakening again. Perhaps that is why rainy seasons move people emotionally without them fully understanding why. Because deep within the unconscious, we recognize ourselves in the rebirth of the earth. After the first rainfall, the world changes with almost miraculous speed. Dry yellow grasslands turn green. New shoots emerge within only days. Trees grow fresh leaves. The air fills with the scent of plants and wet soil. Seen from above, many landscapes seem to paint themselves back into color. What is astonishing is how rapidly plant life can grow during the rainy season. In many tropical grasslands, grass grows almost continuously after heavy rains. Land once barren quickly becomes a green sea, moving with the wind. Life does not merely return, it erupts. There is something deeply powerful in the way nature responds to water, as though the world has always been ready to live, only waiting for the opportunity. Rainforests also follow rhythms of their own. Many forests begin producing new leaves even before the heaviest rains arrive, as though trees have already sensed changes in the air ahead of time. Humidity rises, pressure changes, light softens, and the whole forest begins preparing itself. Young leaves appear brighter green than usual. The air thickens with moisture. The scent of bark, leaves, and earth blends into something profoundly alive. Within those forests, the rainy season does not feel like water simply falling from the sky. It feels like a wave of energy passing through every living thing. According to Jung, nature always reflects movements occurring within the human mind. A rainforest during the rainy season resembles the soul beginning to heal. At first, everything happens quietly. No one notices immediately, but slowly, signs of life begin returning. Emotions soften. Thoughts become gentler. Hope appears again, like fresh leaves after rainfall. Perhaps true rebirth always unfolds this way, not through sudden dramatic change, but through small movements gentle enough for life to begin growing again from within. And perhaps nowhere expresses this more strangely than the desert. For most of the year, deserts seem like places where life can barely exist. Heat, dryness, silence. But after a single rare rainfall, the whole world changes. Some desert plants complete their entire life cycle within only weeks after rain arrives. Seeds dormant for years suddenly sprout. Flowers bloom almost simultaneously across the earth. Insects appear. Life accelerates as though racing against time, because nature understands that opportunity never lasts forever. This gives the rainy season a very special feeling, both peaceful and urgent. The strongest rebirth often appears immediately after the harshest periods, and perhaps human beings are the same way. Many people only truly understand themselves after passing through emotional droughts, after loneliness, after loss, after days when they felt too exhausted to continue. Then one day, something changes. Not dramatically, only enough for the soul to begin feeling moist again. And from the emptiest places, life begins growing once more. According to Jung, every human being carries the capacity for psychological rebirth. No one completely loses themselves forever. Sometimes what we need is not to become someone new, but simply the right conditions for the truest parts within us to live again. What is fascinating is that the rainy season does not only awaken plants, it awakens the invisible world beneath the soil itself. The earth has never truly been dead. Even during dry seasons, beneath hardened dust and silence, millions of microorganisms remain alive in states almost like hibernation. Then water arrives, and that invisible world awakens. Soil bacteria become active again. They break down organic matter and release nutrients for plants. Fungi emerge almost overnight. Underground fungal networks spread through the soil, exchanging nutrients between trees. There are forests where entire biological internet systems exist beneath the ground through fungal networks. Trees communicate through them, sharing nutrients, warning one another of danger, and supporting weaker young trees. Nature is connected far more deeply than human beings once believed. And somehow, this makes Jung's idea of the collective unconscious feel strangely beautiful, as though beneath the surface of every separate being, a larger network of connection always exists, not only among human beings, but among forests and soil as well. Mosses and lichens also return to life after rain. During dry months, they shrink and nearly stop living altogether. But once moisture returns, they soften, grow greener, and continue living again. Some forms of life exist with such patience that they leave human beings astonished. They do not fight the dry season. They learn how to sleep through it. And perhaps that is also a gentle lesson for the human mind. Life does not always need to be conquered. Sometimes, the wisest thing we can do is rest, wait, and keep the deepest part of ourselves alive until the rainy season returns. Because no dry season lasts forever. If you listen carefully to a forest after rain, you begin to realize that life always begins with very small things. A sprout breaking through soft soil, green moss upon stone, the scent of mushrooms in the air, or water dripping from leaves in the darkness. Nature never rushes while healing itself. It grows little by little, softly, quietly, yet impossibly unstoppable. And perhaps the human soul heals in the same way, not through one magical moment, but through thousands of small changes we only recognize when looking back, like the earth after rain. Perhaps something inside us is quietly growing again too. When human beings think about the great civilizations of history, we often remember enormous pyramids, ancient stone cities, kings, wars, and empires that once ruled millions of people. But there is a very quiet truth behind all these things. Many human civilizations were built not upon gold or military power, but upon rain. If the rainy season arrived at the right moment, a city could flourish for generations. But if rain disappeared for too long, even the mightiest empires could slowly collapse in silence. Perhaps that is what makes the rainy season one of the most powerful forces ever shaping human history. It does not only nourish plants, it nourishes civilization itself. Modern human beings live surrounded by electricity, air conditioning, and supermarkets full of food, so we sometimes forget that our ancestors once depended almost entirely upon the rhythm of the sky. Rain determined whether crops would succeed, whether wheat would grow, whether rivers carried enough water, whether livestock survived the dry season. And from this, rain also determined food, in population, taxes, political power, and the stability of entire empires. A failed rainy season was never merely weather. It could become famine, migration, rebellion, or the end of an era. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, modern human beings often believe we have conquered nature, but deep within the unconscious, we still carry the collective memory of thousands of years spent depending upon rain, soil, and harvests. Perhaps that is why the sound of rain still calms the human mind, because somewhere very deep within, the body still remembers. Rain means life will continue. If we look at maps of ancient civilizations, something fascinating appears. Many great cities were built around water, not only around rivers, but around places capable of storing rainwater. Human beings learned to observe rainy seasons very early. They realized water was not merely something to drink, it was time itself. The time for planting, the time for storing, the time for preparing for the next dry season. So thousands of years before pumps or modern systems existed, human beings built reservoirs, stepwells, canals, cisterns, and remarkably sophisticated water systems. There are ancient stepwells in India descending dozens of meters into the earth, functioning both as water reservoirs and almost like temples sinking underground. When the rainy season arrives, water slowly fills the stone steps, and within the dim reflections dancing across the surface, these structures feel almost sacred, because for ancient people, water was never merely a resource. It was a gift from the sky. Perhaps this is very different from how the modern world sees nature. We open a faucet so easily that we forget the long journey of every drop of water, from the ocean into the sky, becoming clouds, then returning through rain. But our ancestors remembered clearly. They lived with the rhythm of water. Regions with stable rainy seasons often became places where civilizations flourished. Plants grew more reliably. Food supplies became stable. Populations increased. Cities expanded. And slowly, political power formed around the ability to control water. Whoever controlled water controlled harvests. Whoever controlled harvests controlled the survival of communities. There is something deeply profound in that connection, because in the end, even the greatest human systems of power still begin with earth and rain. According to Jung, one of humanity's greatest illusions is believing ourselves separate from nature. But the deeper we look into history, the more we realize that every civilization is only a thin layer resting upon the ancient laws of the planet itself. If rain stops falling for too long, everything changes. There are cities once crowded with people that were abandoned after long droughts. Civilizations lost their strength simply because water systems became unstable. Nature has always been greater than humanity. But instead of fighting this truth, many ancient cultures learned how to live in harmony with rainy seasons. This appears most clearly in architecture. In monsoon regions, homes were often built with steep roofs so rain could flow away quickly, wide porches for shelter from heavy rainfall, raised foundations against flooding, windows designed for ventilation in humid air. Architecture was never merely construction, it was a dialogue between human beings and climate. A beautiful house in a rainy land is not a house that fights water. It is a house that understands water, and perhaps that resembles the human mind as well. According to Jung, spiritual maturity does not come from controlling every emotion. It comes from learning how to live alongside them. Like rooftops designed for rain to pass over safely, a healthy soul also learns how to let emotions move through it without being destroyed by them. Rain affects agriculture more deeply than almost anything else, and perhaps no crop reveals this more clearly than rice. Across many parts of Asia, rice civilizations developed entirely around rainy seasons and the steady movement of water. Rice fields do not merely need water, they need rhythm. Water must arrive at the right time, at the right depth, and remain long enough. This made ancient farmers extraordinarily sensitive observers of nature. They studied clouds to predict seasons, listened to winds for change, watched rivers, soil moisture, and insects singing at night. Human beings once lived far closer to nature than we do today. Perhaps that is why they also experienced life through intuition more deeply. Today, many people live surrounded by cities and artificial light until they forget what it feels like to wait for the first rainfall of the season. But somewhere within the unconscious, that memory still remains. Perhaps that is why rainy nights make so many people feel nostalgic without knowing what they are missing. Because the human mind carries memories older than personal experience itself. Jung called this the collective unconscious, a deep layer where humanity shares ancient symbols and primal experiences together. And water has always been one of the most powerful symbols of all. Water symbolizes life, rebirth, emotion, and the deepest unconscious layers of the soul. Perhaps that is why so many civilizations considered rain sacred. People prayed for rain, held festivals for rainy seasons, saw the first rains as signs of hope. Because throughout most of human history, rain was never merely weather. It was the future itself. And there is something deeply beautiful in the way ancient people built their cities around water. They did not try to erase nature, they learned how to listen to it. Canals were built following the direction of natural flow. Reservoirs were placed where water naturally gathered. Homes were designed to welcome the wind and avoid flooding. Life moved in rhythm with the rainy season. Perhaps that is what modern human beings are slowly losing, the feeling of belonging to this planet. We live inside climate-controlled rooms that feel the same all year long. We eat food brought from every corner of the world without needing to understand the seasons that grew it. And sometimes, we forget that our lives still depend on soil, water, and climate, just as deeply as our ancestors did thousands of years ago. But whenever rain begins to fall, something ancient still awakens inside the mind. The sound of rain upon rooftops, the scent of wet earth after the season's first storm, the air softening after many exhausting days of heat. All these things make human beings feel connected once more to the living world. Perhaps the rainy season always brings peace, because it reminds us that every civilization, every city, and every human being is ultimately still part of nature. That no matter how many buildings we construct, no matter how advanced our technology becomes, life still begins with very simple things. Your soil, water, light, and rains returning in their proper season. If we look from far enough away, human history sometimes resembles one long story about learning how to live with water. From the first rice fields, to cities built around reservoirs, to the sound of rain falling on rooftops in the modern night, human beings are still listening to the same ancient rhythm of the planet, the rhythm of the rainy season. There is something very strange about rain. Human beings rarely see rain merely as weather. We feel it. A rainfall can slow an entire city. It can make someone remember childhood, make a lonely person feel even more alone at night, or soften the mind in ways difficult to explain. Somewhere deep inside, the human soul always seems to respond to rain far more strongly than reason alone can understand. Perhaps that is why, throughout thousands of years, the rainy season has never belonged only to nature. It has always belonged to human emotion as well. From ancient villages to modern cities filled with electric lights, people across the world have connected rainy seasons with memory, waiting, hope, love, reunion, and loneliness too. There is something in the sound of rain that softens the mind. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, many symbols in nature do not exist only in the outer world. They also live inside the collective unconscious, of humanity. And water is one of the oldest symbols of all. In mythology, dreams, and depth psychology, water often represents emotion, memory, intuition, the hidden unconscious mind, and rebirth. Perhaps that is why rainy seasons make human beings more reflective. When rain falls, the outer world softens, and the inner world becomes clearer. Long before modern science existed, people already treated the first rainfall of the season as something almost sacred. In many ancient cultures, festivals were held to welcome the return of rain, not only because plants would grow again, but because rain meant life itself would continue. Songs were sung, dances unfolded beneath cloud-filled skies. People prayed for water, harvests, and the rebirth of the earth. For many ancient communities, the first rainfall was not merely a change in weather, it was collective hope. This may sound distant to modern people, yet somewhere inside us, that feeling still remains. Perhaps you too have experienced that moment. After many exhausting days of heat, the first rain arrives, and the body almost sighs with relief. Not only does the temperature change, the mood changes too. Darkening clouds soften the light, the air cools, the sounds of the world become gentler, and strangely, many people begin wanting to slow down. According to Jung, the human mind always responds to symbols and environments more deeply than ordinary consciousness realizes. Rain changes emotional space itself. As light dims and rainfall repeats in steady rhythms, the brain slowly moves away from the alertness of daytime. Human beings become more likely to reflect deeply, remember old memories, feel emotions more clearly, and sometimes feel closer to themselves. Perhaps that is why so many sad songs, poems, and love stories are connected with rain. Rain feels like the perfect background for human emotion. In Eastern poetry, rainy seasons are often linked with longing, waiting, feelings too deep for words. In modern music, rain frequently appears in songs about lost love, loneliness, midnight hours, and emotions that never fully ended. It seems that rain deepens every feeling, not because it creates new emotions, but because it softens the outer shell of the human heart, enough for existing emotions to emerge. There are rainy nights when hearing an old song suddenly brings memories back with astonishing clarity. An old road, someone once loved, a childhood room, or the feeling of oneself at a distant moment long ago. According to Jung, the unconscious does not store memory like data. It stores memory through emotion and symbol, and rain is one of the strongest doorways leading into those deeper layers of the mind. What is remarkable is that rainy seasons do not influence emotion only through thought. They also change human senses themselves. The scent of earth after rain is a strange example. Almost everyone has felt peace while breathing that scent. The smell of wet soil after the first rainfall. Science explains this through plant oils accumulated during dry seasons and compounds created by soil bacteria. But the feeling it creates goes much deeper. The scent of earth after rain often makes people feel familiarity, safety, and a quiet nostalgia difficult to name. Perhaps because thousands of years ago, our ancestors also breathed this scent after rains that saved their harvests. An ancient memory still seems to live inside the body. The sound of rain also carries something unique. Rain on leaves sounds different from rain on metal roofs. Rain on a lake sounds different from rain against city windows. Yet all these sounds share one thing: gentle repetition. The steady rhythm of falling water creates a sense of safety within the brain. It acts like a layer of natural sound covering the sharp noises of the modern world. Perhaps that is why so many people sleep better during rainstorms. The sound of falling water makes the mind feel that everything outside is slowing down. No one needs to hurry anymore. According to Jung, modern human beings often live too long in states of outward orientation, work, pressure, social expectations, competition, and endless noise. But rain turns us inward. It creates a very special psychological space, both lonely and peaceful. It is not the kind of loneliness that hurts. It feels more like sitting quietly in darkness and finally hearing the true voice inside oneself. The light during rainy seasons also changes human emotion in subtle ways. Heavy clouds darken the world slightly. Light becomes softer, bluer, more gentle. The sharp edges of life seem to disappear. According to depth psychology, intense light often keeps human beings alert and outward focused, while softer light leads the mind into more dreamlike states. Perhaps that is why rainy afternoons make people more likely to think deeply, daydream, write, or simply sit silently watching rain fall. Rain creates space for the inner world, and perhaps that is something increasingly rare in modern life. There are people who only truly feel their emotions when it rains. During the day, they remain busy, strong, and constantly moving forward. But during rainy nights, their defenses slowly dissolve. They remember former lovers, remember family, remember youth, or feel a quiet sadness without fully understanding why. According to Jung, this does not mean human beings are weak. It means the unconscious is trying to be heard. Rain acts like a curtain that quiets the outer world, allowing inner truths to appear. Perhaps that is why so many love stories in literature and cinema unfold beneath rain. Rain makes human beings more honest. There is no bright sunlight left to hide emotions, no fast rhythm left to escape from the inner self. Only the sound of water, dim light, and the fragile feeling of human beings beneath vast nature. What is fascinating is that no matter the culture, human beings almost always connect rain with emotion. This suggests rain is not merely a personal experience. It is a collective symbol, a shared memory of humanity itself, a memory of harvests depending on the sky, rooftops sheltering against rain, nights spent listening to falling water, and gratitude when life returned once more to the earth. Technology may have transformed the world dramatically, but rain still touches the human mind in the same ancient way it did thousands of years ago. A child today, listening to nighttime rain, may feel the same peace an ancestor once felt centuries ago inside a small wooden house. Because deep within the unconscious, we are still creatures of nature, and the rainy season always reminds us of that truth, that beneath every role, every job, every pressure, we are still souls capable of being moved by the scent of earth after rain, the soft light of cloud-covered skies, and the steady sound of water falling through long, quiet nights. Perhaps that is why rain has never merely made the world wetter. It makes the world more emotional. And sometimes, it brings human beings closer to the deepest parts of themselves. There is something human beings often forget while listening to rain at night. Nature has never been only gentle. Rain can bring life, harvests, green landscapes, and profound peace within the soul. But water itself can also become one of the most terrifying forces on this planet. Perhaps that is what makes the rainy season so extraordinary. It both nourishes and tests. It is both gentle and violent, and in some ways, this resembles the human mind as well. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, everything in nature carries two sides, light and darkness, creation and destruction, healing and chaos. Jung called this darker aspect the shadow, not something purely evil, but a primordial force human beings often avoid or deny. The rainy season also carries its own shadow, because water does not only bring life to the earth, it reminds humanity that nature will always be greater than every city and every plan we create. When rain arrives in balance, the world revives. But when water exceeds its limits, everything changes quickly. Quiet rivers begin rising. Water becomes darker and stronger. Days of continuous rain soften the earth. Then, somewhere upon a mountainside, the land begins sliding downward through the darkness. Some floods arrive so suddenly that human beings barely understand what is happening. During the day, roads remain dry. By nightfall, water has entered homes. The rainy season reveals an ancient truth. The same force that sustains human life can also take everything away. This may sound frightening, but it is also real. Perhaps that is why many ancient cultures considered water both sacred and worthy of fear. People prayed for rain, but they also feared it, because too much water or too little water could both destroy balance. There are rainy seasons that arrive too late, leaving land cracked for too long. Seeds fail to sprout. Harvests collapse. Livestock slowly die from lack of grass and water. Yet elsewhere, rain arrives too violently. Fields become flooded. Soil is washed away. Crops rot before reaching maturity. What is heartbreaking is this: both drought and flood can begin from the same thing, rain. And perhaps human emotion is similar. According to Jung, emotions themselves are not bad, but when they become absent or overwhelm balance, suffering begins. Too little emotion makes people dry and distant. Too much emotion at once can become inner chaos. Nature and the human soul seem to mirror each other in strange ways. One of the most frightening truths about rain is the speed with which water can change the world. Water appears soft, not sharp like stone, not hot like fire. Yet over time, water can carve mountains, redirect rivers, destroy roads, and sweep away structures human beings believed were permanent. There are tropical storms born upon warm oceans thousands of kilometers away. At first, only a small, low-pressure system, but as they absorb heat and moisture, they grow like enormous living creatures, and eventually they move toward land. Rain crashes down. Wind screams through buildings. The sea rises. Electricity disappears. Roads become rivers. In moments like these, human beings are forced to remember how small we truly are within nature. Perhaps modern society makes us too accustomed to the feeling of control. Control over light, temperature, time, and even the environment itself. But a great rainy season can erase that illusion within a single night. Water floods across concrete streets. Drainage systems fail. Bridges tremble beneath powerful currents. Everything human beings build becomes tested by rain. Roads, dams, drainage systems, homes. The rainy season feels like a question. Nature continuously asks civilization, have you truly learned how to live with water? In many modern cities, floods are caused not only by heavy rain, they also emerge because human beings have forgotten the natural flow of land itself. Rivers are narrowed, lakes are filled in, earth becomes covered with concrete. Water no longer has space to move, and when heavy rains finally arrive, nature attempts to reclaim its ancient pathways. There is something deeply psychological about this. According to Jung, when emotions are suppressed too long without release, they too begin overflowing in unexpected ways. Anxiety, exhaustion, anger, or emptiness. Perhaps both nature and the human soul require flow. When flow is blocked too long, pressure begins to build. One of the quietest dark sides of rainy seasons is disease. Standing water allows mosquitoes to breed. Flooding contaminates clean water supplies. Bacteria and parasites spread more rapidly through humid environments. This has followed humanity throughout history. In many places, rainy seasons once meant malaria, epidemics, and long periods of suffering. Yet, strangely, even through all these hardships, human beings can never fully hate rain, because we understand that without water, life itself cannot exist. Perhaps this is one of the deepest lessons the rainy season offers. Everything that nourishes life also carries the power to destroy, and maturity means learning how to live alongside both sides of that truth. According to Jung, true psychological growth does not come from eliminating the shadow. It comes from seeing it, understanding it, and learning balance. Human beings suffer when believing life should remain endlessly gentle, positive, and easy. But nature has never worked that way. After dry seasons come rains. After life comes loss. After peace sometimes comes chaos. And then, everything begins again. Perhaps because ancient cultures understood this, they treated nature with profound respect. They did not see themselves as masters of Earth. They knew they lived alongside forces far greater than themselves. When listening to gentle rain at night, it is difficult to imagine that the same phenomenon may be causing devastating floods somewhere else. But that is the nature of the world. Not entirely gentle, not entirely cruel. It simply moves according to laws greater than human emotion. What is fascinating is that even with its darker side, rain still brings peace to the human mind. Perhaps because deep within the unconscious, we understand that healing and chaos often exist together. Sadness sometimes helps people grow. Difficult periods can lead us toward deeper self-understanding. Great floods may destroy, yet also leave fertile soil behind. Nature does not divide things into purely good or purely bad. It is more complex than that, and so is the human soul. There are rainy nights that bring peace. There are rainy nights that awaken painful memories. The sound of water can resemble a lullaby was nice, or the echo of loneliness. Everything depends on which part of the soul is being awakened. According to Jung, the more human beings deny the darkness within themselves, the more controlled by it they become. Perhaps nature reminds us of this through the rainy season itself. That water is not only life, it is also power, a force that must be understood, respected, and lived with in harmony. If we look deeply enough, the darker side of the rainy season does not make rain less beautiful. Instead, it makes rain more real. Because everything truly alive in this world carries many sides: gentleness and violence, beauty and danger, healing and transformation. Perhaps that is what makes nighttime rain feel both peaceful and mysterious. While lying in darkness listening to water fall beyond the window, human beings unconsciously sense that nature is breathing, moving, and carrying ancient powers far beyond our control. And perhaps that is why we both fear and cannot stop loving the rain. There is something very special about human beings. We are the only creatures on Earth that both live within nature and try to understand it. Thousands of years ago, people looked toward the sky to predict when rainy seasons would arrive. They observed the shape of clouds, listened to the direction of winds, felt the scent of the air before the first rainfall. Today, we possess satellites in space, radar systems capable of seeing through storms, supercomputers predicting climate, and weather maps covering the entire planet. Yet strangely, no matter how advanced technology becomes, the rainy season still keeps something mysterious within it. Perhaps because rain is not merely a physical phenomenon, it is the heartbeat of a vast living system humanity is still learning to understand little by little. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, one of humanity's deepest instincts is the need to search for meaning within the world around us. We do not only want to know what happens, we want to know why it happens, what connects all things together, and where we belong within the larger picture. Perhaps that is why modern science, at its deepest level, is also a psychological journey, a journey attempting to see the invisible currents beneath the surface of the world. And the rainy season is one of the most complex systems humanity has ever studied. Seen from space at night, Earth resembles a breathing organism. Massive cloud bands drift slowly across oceans. Storms spiral like giant wheels of energy. Moisture shifts endlessly between sea and land. Today, satellites allow humanity to observe all these things from beyond the planet itself. There is something almost meditative in that image, a small blue sphere floating in cosmic darkness, where water endlessly evaporates, becomes clouds, and falls once more to the earth. Modern satellites can observe cloud movement, soil moisture, river levels, rainfall amounts, and even the greenness of vegetation itself. From hundreds of kilometers above the planet, humanity can watch rainy seasons moving across forests, grasslands, and deserts. If our ancestors once studied the sky to predict rain, today humanity watches the entire planet at once. But what is fascinating is this: the more we understand nature, the more complex it becomes. A tiny change in ocean temperature may alter rainfall thousands of kilometers away. A storm may change direction because of subtle atmospheric shifts. The rainy season resembles a vast network of invisible connections. And in many ways, the human mind is the same. According to Jung, the soul is not a collection of separate pieces. Every emotion, memory, and thought connects together in ways we often fail to notice. An old memory may shape present emotions. A small fear may originate from experiences long buried in the past. Like climate itself, the human interior contains hidden currents beneath the surface. One of the strangest technologies human beings created to study rainy seasons is radar. Radar does not merely see rain from the outside. It looks inside storms themselves. Invisible signals are sent into clouds and reflected back, allowing people to see how much water exists inside clouds, the movement of wind, the structure of storms, and where rain will fall most intensely. This sounds almost like modern magic, but in truth, it reflects something humanity has always desired: to see what is hidden beneath the surface. Perhaps that is why Jung became deeply interested in symbols, dreams, and the unconscious. He believed what appears upon the surface of the mind is only a very small part of reality. Beneath it exists an entire hidden world. Radar looks inside storms, and depth psychology attempts to look into the inner weather of human beings. There are storms in the sky, and there are storms within the soul. Both begin through quiet movements invisible at first. But perhaps the greatest wonder of modern science is not predicting the future. It is the ability to look into the distant past. Human beings do not only study today's rainy seasons, we also try to understand how rainfall changed thousands of years ago. And to do that, scientists learned how to read the memory of Earth. That memory is stored in very quiet places, in mud beneath lake beds, inside stalactites, deep within caves, in the rings of ancient trees, and in prehistoric ice cores at the poles. There is something deeply poetic about that idea, that this planet is still remembering its own history. Each layer of mud beneath a lake preserves traces of ancient rainy seasons. Years of heavy rain leave different sediments than years of drought. Tree rings also carry memories of weather. In wet years, trees grow more strongly and their rings become wider. In dry years, the rings grow thinner. An ancient tree hundreds of years old is like a silent diary of climate itself. It stands motionless within the forest, yet it has witnessed centuries of rainy seasons passing by. According to Carl Gustav Jung, human beings also preserve memories in ways they themselves often do not realize. Not every memory exists as a clear image. Many memories live within sensations, reflexes, and emotions. Just as Earth stores the memory of rain in stone, mud, and ice, the human soul also preserves its own rainy seasons. The years of happiness, the periods of loneliness, the times of healing, all of them leave traces inside us. Caves too preserve the history of rainfall. Tiny drops of water falling over thousands of years slowly create stalactites. Within each thin layer of minerals, scientists can read humidity, temperature, and rainfall from distant ages of the past. This makes caves feel like frozen memories of time itself. Every droplet leaves a tiny mark, And over thousands of years, those marks become the story of an entire planetary climate. Perhaps this is also true for human beings. Not only great events change us, sometimes it is the small moments, repeated again and again. A single sentence, a sleepless night, a feeling of being loved, or the sound of rain outside a window that quietly shape the soul over time. Modern climate science shows that rainy seasons were never perfectly stable. Throughout Earth's history, there have been eras of long-lasting heavy rainfall, periods of enormous drought, and climate shifts that transformed entire ecosystems. This reminds humanity that change is the natural state of the planet. Perhaps people suffer when searching for absolute stability, while nature itself is always moving. According to Jung, psychological maturity does not mean reaching a state where nothing changes anymore. It means learning how to remain balanced within life's constant changes. Like trees learning to live with both rainy seasons and dry seasons, there is something quietly beautiful about human beings dedicating entire lives to studying rain. Scientists sit before screens filled with data, but in truth, they are trying to understand something very ancient: how Earth nourishes life. Modern technology may make everything appear colder and more mechanical, but at its deepest level, science still begins with curiosity and wonder. Wonder toward clouds, flowing water, thunder, and the rhythm of the planet itself. Perhaps that is why, even with satellites and supercomputers, human beings still feel emotional while watching rain fall. Because understanding the mechanics of rain does not remove its beauty. Instead, it reveals that behind every quiet rainfall exists an entire living system in motion. Oceans evaporating, winds moving across the planet, clouds forming, and Earth continuing its ancient cycle. If we look deeply enough, modern science does not make nature less mysterious. It simply shows us that the mystery is far greater than we once imagined. Many people feel that nature is changing, even when they cannot fully explain what feels different. Rain arrives later than before, or arrives too suddenly. Some places remain dry for weeks, then within a single night, receive more water than an entire month once brought. Familiar rivers become less predictable. The seasons no longer feel as stable as childhood memories suggest they once were. And somewhere deep inside that feeling, humanity begins realizing the ancient rhythm of the planet is changing. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, human beings always carry a deep desire for stability. We want to believe that seasons will return on time, the sky will continue behaving as before, and the world will remain familiar. But nature was never completely still. And now, that change is becoming more visible than ever before. Rainy seasons still arrive, but in many places on Earth, they no longer arrive in the same way. Some regions once knew long, gentle rains, lasting across many months. Now, rainy seasons are shorter, but more violent. Water no longer falls slowly. It pours. Massive rainstorms appear within very short periods of time. Rivers rise faster. The ground cannot absorb water quickly enough. Cities flood within hours. Then afterward, unusually long droughts follow. What is strange is this: drought and flooding can now exist within the same region. Some places lack water for months, but when rain finally arrives, the amount becomes too overwhelming to retain. It feels as though nature is slowly losing the delicate balance it maintained for so long. According to climate science, as global temperatures rise, warmer air can hold more moisture. This allows storms and heavy rains to carry vastly larger amounts of water than before. In other words, the sky itself is becoming heavier with water, and when limits are finally exceeded, rain falls with greater violence. If we look deeply, this resembles the human mind in many ways. According to Jung, when emotions accumulate too long without natural release, they often erupt more extremely later. Perhaps nature itself is experiencing something similar. Cycles once stable are being pushed out of balance, and the consequences appear as larger floods, longer droughts, and increasingly unpredictable weather. Some rivers that flowed steadily for centuries now behave unpredictably. Water levels fluctuate more violently. Melting ice far away alters rivers elsewhere. Rain no longer arrives in familiar seasons. This is not only climate change, it is the changing rhythm of life itself, because nearly everything on Earth depends upon rain. Plants, crater, animals, agriculture, water supplies, and even human psychology. When rainfall rhythms change, entire ecosystems must change alongside them. Some migrating animals evolved around older rainy seasons, but now water arrives later or disappears earlier. Some seeds once sprouted according to familiar weather signals, but the environment surrounding them is slowly becoming different. What worries many scientists is not merely change itself, it is the speed of change. Nature always adapts, but sometimes change happens too quickly. According to Jung, people suffer most, not when change occurs, but when the mind cannot adapt quickly enough. Perhaps that is what many people feel while observing the modern world today. A vague sensation that the weather no longer feels familiar anymore. The rains of childhood once followed their own rhythm. Skies slowly darkened, winds shifted direction, the smell of earth appeared, then rain fell gently through the night. Now, in many places, rain arrives faster, harder, and less predictably. This creates a deep uneasiness difficult to describe, because within the unconscious, human beings need to feel that nature still follows recognizable patterns. When those patterns change, the mind itself becomes unsettled. Yet perhaps the most remarkable thing about humanity is this: we continue trying to adapt. Even while facing enormous climate shifts, human beings continue learning the rhythm of water again. Modern forecasting systems become increasingly accurate. Satellites constantly monitor clouds and storms from space. Climate models attempt to predict where regions may become wetter, drier, or more vulnerable to flooding in the future. Cities are also changing the way they live with water. Reservoirs are expanded, drainage systems redesigned, flood protection zones constructed. Early warning systems provide more time before storms and floods arrive. There is something quietly beautiful about this. Human beings are not completely fighting nature. We are trying to learn how to listen to it more carefully. Perhaps ancient civilizations once understood this already. No one truly conquers nature. We either live in harmony with it or pay the price for forgetting. According to Jung, true maturity does not mean controlling everything. It means developing enough awareness to understand forces greater than ourselves. Perhaps climate change is forcing humanity to mature in exactly that way. For centuries, human beings lived as though nature's rhythms would remain unchanged forever. But now, the planet is responding to everything humanity has done. Forests disappearing, oceans warming, atmospheres shifting, and water cycles drifting away from their former balance. What is saddest is that many of these changes happen quietly. Not every day brings a massive storm, but year after year, temperatures rise slightly, rainy seasons shorten slightly, droughts last slightly longer, and after enough years, the entire world becomes different. Perhaps this resembles the human soul as well. We rarely change completely overnight. The deepest transformations usually happen slowly. A long sadness, constant pressure, or quiet loneliness, until one day, we realize we are no longer the same person we once were. Nature, too, is changing in this way. And yet, amidst all these transformations, the rainy season still carries extraordinary beauty. Because no matter how much the world changes, human beings will always look toward the sky when rain begins to fall. We will still hear water falling at night and feel something ancient moving within the soul. Technology may continue advancing. Cities may become smarter. Forecasts may become more accurate. But nothing can change the truth that human beings are still creatures sustained by water. And somewhere deep within the unconscious, we still respond to rainy seasons, exactly as our ancestors did thousands of years ago. We still feel peace when cool air follows rainfall, still feel uneasy when dark skies linger too long, still sense that water is not merely a resource, it is the heartbeat of life itself. Perhaps the most important lesson climate change is teaching humanity is not simply how to build stronger dams or better warning systems. It is a deeper lesson that we were never separate from nature. Every rainfall on Earth connects with oceans, the atmosphere, forests, and the way human beings live upon this planet. If we look carefully, climate change is not only an environmental story. It is a story about the relationship between humanity and the planet we inhabit together. And perhaps, just as in Jungian psychology, true healing only begins when human beings stop denying that deep connection. It is difficult to believe that could simply be a coincidence. The rainy season also makes the world feel more filled with sound. During the dry season, many forests become almost silent at night. Dry air carries sound differently. Many animals become less active. But after the rain, everything changes. Insects begin vibrating their wings in the darkness. Frogs call out from newly formed ponds. Tiny creatures hidden beneath leaves begin moving once again. A rainy night is never truly silent. It feels more like life itself is whispering. There is something deeply beautiful in that image. While a human being lies inside a dark room, listening to rain beyond the window, outside, an entire living world is quietly moving. Frogs calling to one another across the grasslands, insects vibrating beneath the glow of lights, water dripping from tree canopies, and forests drinking rain in the darkness. The whole planet seems to breathe through sound. One of the most powerful sounds of the rainy season is thunder. Thunder can travel across dozens of kilometers. It begins as a tiny vibration in the air, then expands into a deep rolling sound that makes the entire sky seem to tremble. What is interesting is this: even though thunder is loud, many people still find it relaxing when heard from far away at night, perhaps because thunder creates a feeling of vastness. It reminds human beings that beyond our ordinary daily lives, there exist forces far greater than ourselves. According to Carl Gustav Jung, human beings need experiences that make them feel humble before the immensity of the world. Because when people become too trapped inside the ego and personal pressure, the mind easily becomes tense and isolated. But when distant thunder rolls across the night sky, small worries suddenly feel lighter. We remember that we are living on a planet far larger, older, and more alive than any problem we currently carry. The sounds of rainy seasons also change depending on where they are heard in the world. Rain falling on metal rooftops in a city feels different from rain deep within forests. Rain striking a lake sounds different from rain falling across a hot desert, but they all share something in common. Rain always makes human beings listen more carefully. Perhaps because when it rains, the outside world slows down. Fewer cars, fewer sharp noises, softer light, cooler air. Space begins to appear. And inside that space, the mind starts hearing things normally hidden beneath everyday noise. The wind, the heartbeat, breathing itself, and even one's own emotions. According to Jung, many people live their entire lives without truly listening to their inner world. Modern life is too loud. Everything constantly demands attention. Screens, work, to message is Proston's light. But rain creates a natural curtain of sound that softens the world. And when the world softens, the soul begins rising toward the surface. Perhaps that is why many people feel more reflective, more nostalgic, or more emotional during rainy nights. Not because rain creates new emotions, but because its sound opens the door to deep hidden parts that have existed within us for a very long time. There are rainy nights when simply sitting in silence makes a person feel strangely close to something ancient, not a specific memory, but a feeling of belonging to this living world, because the sounds of rainy seasons existed long before cities, telephones, or any civilization at all. Our ancestors once slept beneath those sounds. Animals still live according to them. Forests still vibrate each night with the rhythm of water. Rain feels like the heartbeat of the planet, expressed through sound. And when we listen deeply enough, human beings seem to synchronize with that rhythm once again. Perhaps the most beautiful thing is this: the rainy season was never truly silent. Even during the darkest nights, something is always whispering. Water, leaves, insects, distant thunder, or winds carrying moisture through the sky. Nature never fully sleeps. It simply slows down and breathes more deeply. And perhaps that is what makes rain the perfect sound for nights meant for rest. Because while listening to rain, human beings unconsciously feel that everything is still functioning exactly as it has for millions of years. Forests are still drinking water. Rivers are still flowing. Insects are still singing in the darkness. And Earth is still quietly speaking to itself through those gentle rains. There is something very strange about rainy nights. Even though the world outside becomes wetter, darker, and filled with falling water, human beings often become sleepier, not merely in a pleasant way, but in a very deep physical sense. The heartbeat slows, breathing softens, thoughts become less sharp, and the mind slowly drifts into something soft and dreamlike. There are rainy nights when simply lying still and listening to water outside the window makes a person feel as though the world itself is embracing them. What is fascinating is this: it is not entirely emotional. Rain truly changes the human body and mind in subtle ways. According to the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, modern people often believe they live through logic and reason, but most of what we feel each day is guided by deeper layers: instinct, evolutionary memory, biological rhythms, and the collective unconscious. Perhaps that is why a rainy night can calm the mind more effectively than many words of comfort, because the human body learned how to respond to rain long before language ever existed. From a biological perspective, rainy seasons create nearly perfect conditions for sleep. When it rains, natural light decreases. Heavy clouds make the world darker, softer, and quieter. The bright, white light of daytime disappears. The sky turns into deep, blue-gray tones. This directly affects the brain. The human body functions according to circadian rhythms closely tied to light. As light decreases, the brain increases production of melatonin, the hormone that makes the body sleepy and relaxed. In other words, rain tells the brain that it is time to rest. Perhaps that is why rainy afternoons often feel strangely dreamlike. Even before bedtime arrives, the mind has already begun slowing down. People become more likely to lie down longer, avoid going outside, curl beneath blankets, or simply sit quietly watching rain fall. The body seems to remember an older rhythm of life. Before electricity and glowing screens through the night, our ancestors lived according to the natural light of the sky. When darkness and rain arrived together, activity slowed. The world became quieter, safer, more suitable for rest. Perhaps through thousands of years of evolution, the human nervous system learned how to relax while listening to rain. Rainy air also strongly affects sleep. After hot days, temperatures usually drop when rain arrives. Winds carry cooler moisture. The air becomes softer and less dry. This matters greatly for the body. To enter deep sleep, human body temperature must slightly decrease, and rain naturally helps this happen. Perhaps you have experienced this feeling before. After a long, humid day, nighttime rain arrives, and the body almost instantly feels relief. The skin cools, breathing deepens, Muscles loosen, as though nature itself is helping the body release the pressure accumulated throughout the day. But perhaps the most special thing about rain lies in its sound. Rain is a form of natural white noise. The steady, continuous sound of water masks, sudden environmental sounds, traffic, doors closing, footsteps, or sharp noises that force the brain into alertness. When surrounded by rainfall, the nervous system begins feeling safer. According to neuroscience, the human brain constantly scans the environment for danger. Unexpected and irregular sounds keep the brain alert. But rain is different. It repeats steadily, softly, without demanding attention, and because of that, the brain slowly relaxes. Rain becomes like a blanket of sound covering the mind in darkness. Perhaps that is why many people cannot sleep well in complete silence, yet easily drift into sleep while hearing rain outside the window. According to Jung, human beings constantly seek psychological shelter, not only physical shelter, but emotional shelter as well. And rain creates that feeling in a deeply ancient way. When hearing rain fall during the night, we know we are inside a protected place. Outside exists the vast, dark, wet world of nature. Inside exists warmth and safety. It is an ancient human experience. Perhaps our ancestors once felt the same thing while sheltering from storms inside caves, wooden huts, or simple roofs thousands of years ago. A feeling that says, "Tonight, I'm safe." The smell of earth after rain also affects the mind in profound ways. Almost everyone has felt something gentle while breathing the scent of damp earth after the first rain. Science explains that the smell comes from huile de feu and compounds created by soil bacteria, but the emotions it awakens are far deeper. The scent of earth after rain often carries peace, childhood memories, nostalgia, and sometimes a very soft sadness. According to Jung, smell is one of the strongest gateways into the unconscious. Scents can awaken memories that logic forgot long ago. A rainy night may cause someone to remember an old house, rain falling on childhood rooftops, a person who once sat beside them during rainy seasons years ago, or the feeling of themselves at some distant moment in time. What is special is this: those memories usually return more gently during rain. Not too sharp, not too painful. They feel like old leaves drifting slowly across the waters of memory. Perhaps that is why rainy nights make people more reflective. Not in an anxious way, but in a softened state where real emotions finally rise to the surface. Some people feel more peaceful in the rain. Others feel lonelier. This may sound contradictory, but it is perfectly natural, because rain lowers the noise of the outside world. And when the world grows quieter, people begin hearing themselves more clearly. If peace already exists inside, rain becomes a lullaby. If loneliness lives inside, water may deepen that loneliness. According to Jung, darkness and silence often allow the unconscious to emerge more strongly. That is why rainy nights make people remember more, dream more, and feel more deeply. But perhaps the most beautiful thing is this: whether sad or peaceful, rain makes people more honest with themselves. No more rigid daytime masks, no more frantic speed of modern life. Only falling water, dim, gentle light, and a soul slowly becoming still. Perhaps that is why rainy seasons are forever connected to sleep. Not only because the body becomes tired, but because rain returns human beings to a more natural state, a state where light softens, air cools, sound becomes rhythmic, and the mind no longer needs to remain constantly alert, as though the planet itself is saying, "Now, rest for a while." If we look deeply enough, humanity's love for rainy nights may not simply be preference. It may be an ancient evolutionary memory, a memory that says, when rain arrives, the earth softens, the heat fades, water returns, and life will continue for another season. And perhaps, deep within the unconscious, the body still remembers that. So whenever rain falls steadily through darkness, the heart slows, the eyes grow heavy, the mind softens, as though after a long day inside a noisy world, human beings have finally returned to a place where they can truly rest. Breathing becomes softer, eyes grow heavier, thoughts begin dissolving like water flowing across softened earth. There is no need to rush anymore. The world outside will continue moving, rivers will continue flowing, clouds will continue drifting across the night sky, and earth will continue breathing beneath the gentle silence of the rainy season. Perhaps sometimes the most healing thing is not finding every answer, but simply allowing yourself to rest. Like forests resting beneath long rainfalls, like lakes lying still beneath cloud-covered skies, like nature itself, which has never tried to become anything other than what it already is. And perhaps, tonight, you do not need to try so hard either. Just be here. Listen, slow your breathing, and let the sound of rain carry heavy thoughts far away. If today was difficult, remember that even the driest lands are someday touched by rain. If you are feeling lonely, remember that somewhere out there, millions of people have also lain awake during rainy nights and felt exactly the same way. And if you are tired, perhaps tonight is the moment your body and soul truly need rest. Because no one can bloom endlessly through every season. Even nature needs dark seasons, long rains, and quiet spaces to be reborn. Perhaps that is the deepest lesson the rainy season teaches us. Softness is not weakness, rest is not surrender, and sometimes healing begins the moment we allow ourselves to slow down. Outside, the rain is still falling steadily through the darkness. Forests are still drinking water. Rivers are still rising beneath the dim moon hidden behind clouds. Tiny insects are still singing through the night. And somewhere deep inside, perhaps your soul is slowly becoming quieter too. Thank you for staying with me until the end of tonight's journey on Stories for Sleep. If these gentle stories helped your mind feel even slightly more peaceful after a long day, take a quiet moment to subscribe to the channel and join us again on future nights, because there are still many more stories waiting to be told beneath the soft light of darkness. Stories about the human mind, dreams, nature, the universe, and the deep mysteries hidden inside ourselves. And now, allow your eyes to close slowly. Let the rain outside become tonight's final lullaby. I wish you a very deep sleep, a peaceful dream, and a lighter soul when you wake tomorrow morning. Sleep well.